step over from the other side and say, hey, folks, we don't need to be enemies. We can all work together here. For me, the fact that you're based in such a spirit of equity, I see a lot of people that are willing to go into the non-traditional or really truly traditional and indigenous ways of healing, but there may be doctors who want to really benefit monetarily and are kind of based sometimes in greed and that kind of thing. And certainly we see a lot of greed in these spaces, but I just want to comment, if that's all right, that you seem like a very spiritually based person. And I've just run into more and more people that are in the medical field that I think are really transforming that space. That's all.
Yeah, and the question here that about the medical model, I actually do believe that we the medical model that we have is basically it. I read this book the other day, and I think that connects with what you're saying, Leo. It's kind of looking way back at the history of Chinese medicine versus like Western medicine, which really originates from Greek philosophy, and it's based on the fact that in Greece, in ancient Greece, they were doing dissections, so they were looking in and they were seeing what physically was underneath, whereas in China they weren't. And so when they're like, for instance, if you like feel your pulse and underneath there is a tube, exactly like what's happening, and it's connected to your heart and everything, so you feel that. And so like it knowing what is underneath there, what the structures are like, actually influences what you feel when you're doing it. And so then for instance, in Chinese medicine, you have this like deep and light pulse, and there's like 3 parts to it, and each of them seem to connect with different organs in the Chinese system. And these were all developed as part of an observation, not necessarily based on like what structure we see underneath. And that like split has like continued and continued and continued, and now we're at the point where if there is not a diagnostic test that shows something that is different from the norm, then the system doesn't have anything to explain the symptoms that you're experiencing. And so it gets, basically it's saying like, there's nothing wrong with me. And that's where that road down that way, which is based like at the very bottom on like structure. If there's not something structurally abnormal, then nothing is wrong. That is kind of the basis for the way that Western medicine sees these things. And that's where I think it does have, like, it is a little bit difficult to connect this, like you said, Annie, about with the realm of psychedelics. And also, like, I think that also like has to do with with the marginalized cultures who maybe see the world in a different way. We sort of like, that's been a big thing about colonization, right? We go through into different cultures, and then like one of the first things we bring the Western medicine system. And also we now we also bring the Western diseases to those places too. So I think that they are a little bit difficult to marry the two sides together. Luckily to talk to the people who still are, very much believer in the Western side, we do have lots of data now, from people like MAPS and other, the Johns Hopkins are working with psilocybin, that, we do have a lot of data there that can speak in that language. And I think the thing is, we also have a lot of it, like this is where I think events like this are really important, because we also have the lived experience, which is also a huge part, and I think is total, a huge part of it as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that this part, connecting the medical model with the way that psychedelics kind of like see the world, I think that could probably be its own event. There's a lot to discuss there, but yeah. Anyway, the other piece that I also want to address is that, I understand that the way that things are structured now, things like ketamine are kind of really difficult to access. And I imagine also, should we, for instance, like, I mean, I don't think that I've read any estimates about what it's going to cost in Oregon and what it's going to cost in Colorado, but like putting things through this part of the system does eventually, end up costing a lot, because then somebody has to get insurance and there has to be like this, the structure, and then there's like liability behind it and everything. So I think like equitable access is something that really needs to be thought about in how we do this. And, for instance, an ideal center, say like, what they're going to build in Colorado or what they're already building in Oregon, I think would also need to take into account like helping people integrate, helping people process journeys or experiences that they either had with like an underground guide or with a, on their own, because that sort of processing should be something that's available, and not just for people that experience, that come into the center and take the psilocybin there. And so that's where and that's also part of why we're trying to have some integration circles at our space for people that are not just coming to us for our sessions, but also, Seattle was decriminalized. When was that? Sometime last year,
October.
Earlier. Yeah. And so with that increasing access, I've heard a couple anecdotes of people say like taking, combining psilocybin with SSRIs and having like challenging experiences or things like that. And so I think that that's another place that both like, in Theo Society maybe adapt to, and like other people in that space can really help with education. And I was speaking with a woman who's part of the Cascadia Psychedelic Society, and we're planning to do a little like tools. I forgot the exact name of it, but we're planning to do a little series of like basically a harm reduction focused education pieces, like talking about ethics, talking about like ways to, how to choose a guide, how to like pharmacology, difficult, medications that are like, this is going to not be pleasant versus like, this could be actually dangerous, or like, what plays well together, what doesn't. And also like thoughts on, how to create your own safe space, how, ways that you can integrate your experiences, which I think is also a good part to focus on while this movement is still kind of in its infancy, and there's all these kind of gray areas and lots of people getting, going to underground places for either for their own personal like a solo use of these substances, or like underground guides. Oh, there's a lot of messages here. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, that's a little bit about me and what I'm thinking about this, and I'll turn the floor back over to whoever wants to go next.
Yasmin. Hello?
Is that Yasmin?
Oh,
Yes, Yasmin, if Noah is not still on the call, you were gonna go next just to kind of share your story, if you don't mind doing that, but if you don't want to, then of course don't. But I wasn't sure if Noah was done, because he said he needed to get on the train. Maybe he got on the train.
he's still there, but he's on mute.
Okay. Well,
How about now? Can you hear me?
yep.
Whatever you want to do. I mean, I can get on the train and I should be able to come back above ground and rejoin in about a half hour. It depends on.
Yeah, why don't you do that and we'll hear from Yasmin.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be able to listen to you guys probably on and off, but I won't be able to speak. So
Okay.
see you in a little while.
Yasmin, if you're open to it, do you mind sharing a little bit about your story?
Well, my story, I've been through a lot my whole life. And I just want to give my personal opinion on the things that I've experienced. I was born in America, but I'm originally, as we can see, African American. And I have felt that I have had a lot of discrimination against me because of my skin. And it's very complicated to explain, but I just want to say that I have been on medications for years. During those years, I just felt stagnant. I wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do, to be able to, I mean, they have antidepressants, antipsychotics, like all of those different things. And it was just very frustrating for me because I felt like I was kind of targeted from when I was little, the abuse that I went through. And when you realize that you've kind of been used your whole life, it makes you feel very sad. But at the same time, when I was on the medications, I wasn't even able to address my trauma. And now that I'm in that space where I'm trying to address my trauma, I feel like some of the side effects from the medications are impacting me, making me feel like, oh, those things didn't happen. And it's like they did happen, you know? There's certain people that I had as doctors that said some things about me that, you know, weren't true. And I personally feel, like I said, I haven't taken psilocybin, so I cannot speak on that. But as a recovering drug addict, prostitute, like all the things that I went through, I will say that we need to have other options. And I know it's hard for people because of the way that Western medicine is set up. But if I was in another place, in another culture, my gifts would be honored more than they do here. And, you know, it's okay to cry, you know, because it's just either way, the system is broken, you know, it is. And I've been through so much in and out the hospitals. And as a Black woman, I have been discriminated against in there. So I've been working on more holistic, healthy options, being able to heal myself and actually deal with my trauma from meditation, yoga, journaling, doing stuff like that. And I still feel like there's just a sense of, you know, just frustration because I know that things don't want to change, but sometimes people have to change in order to heal and to move forward. and not feel like, you know, so I've been using breath work, journaling, mindfulness, movement, and, you know, just connecting to nature. And those are the things that I feel like in the hospitals, they don't appreciate that. Like, there's been so many times where I've been overly medicated, I couldn't even get up, you know, I would sleep all day and just feel like I was like, you know, wasting away. And I feel at this point in time, like, specifically certain doctors that I talked to that said that, you know, she has no education, no this, no that, no children. It's like they know that I do. And it just, it's frustrating because when you have those medications, like, I understand, like, for some people they work better, but when I was on them, it wasn't working for me. It wasn't. It was making me feel like I just didn't understand, like, what I was supposed to do other than try to, you know, survive. And I want to do more than survive. You know, I want to be able to flourish and do the things that I wanted to do when I was little, but I just feel like it's still just another form of slavery, you know? And there's just sorry, getting choked up. Exactly. And then one of the side effects from the medication that I was taking for years, lithium, is memory loss, you know? And I feel like they're trying to make me forget things that happened that I know happened. And it's just frustrating because the world needs community. You can't make it through this without each other, you know? And I've always been the one to just kind of like go first, you know? And she says medications are not designed to be effective in healing. And I would agree with that because medications are supposed to stop depression, all of those things, but they didn't, you know, it just kind of masked it. And it made me feel like, okay, I'm allowed to feel my feelings and I'm allowed to feel upset about things. And I feel like with the medication, you know, it's kind of used, but that's kind of like how I feel specifically as, I mean, I know, but specifically like as women, we go through so much, especially as Black women. And I just feel it says Mother Nature has the answer that you're looking for, of course. And we need to be able to connect with nature and do that. But in some of the hospitals, they don't even let you do that. And it's just frustrating because either way you look at it, like, there's just, everybody has different things going on. And, you know, I don't want to discredit anybody for what they've gone through, but like some of the people that I've come in contact with, they just don't even tell the truth. And then when I tell the truth, it's like, okay, they're like, oh, well, that didn't happen to you. And I'm like, but it did, you know? So I'm very frustrated at this point, but I feel like I've been healing a lot more than I was before and addressing my trauma and remembering things that happened to me when I was little. They're like, oh, well, there's no way possible you can remember those things when you were little, but it's like you can if you're able to like access your higher self and remember things that happened to you. And I understand there's like doctors and they do studies and things like that. But one of the things I will say is that when I was on the medications, it just made me feel like I couldn't do anything, you know? And then when I was off, I felt better. You know, I was actually showering and taking care of myself. So either way, at this point, we need a change. we just need to change. There has to be another option for holistic healing in this system, because some of the things that I've experienced in the hospitals are just horrific. Especially the amount of discrimination that I've experienced as a Black woman. Thank you for letting me share. I have another event that I'm supposed to go to, but I'll hang on for a little bit if anybody has any questions.
I have a comment.
Mhm.
I think that, you know, I know from my sister that was in the closed mental ward that when you force somebody to take psychoactives, it's a kind of domination that's absolutely unbearable. And I think that, and I really feel for you. I think that if you take the same substances, but you decide to take them, they can suddenly work. If it's your choice. That's what I think.
What, to be able to take the medications? Because sometimes, you know,
If you have free choice, if you're the one who decides whether or not to take them and when, then some of them can work. I think that the main problem is the domination on the side of the domination and the insult on the side of the medical administration, the doctors, the nurses, everybody. The fact that they feel entitled to tell you what to do because it's for your own good, it's for your health. We're curing you. First of all, mental health has a problem. They're not curing. But even if they were, it's just so intrusive.
This is Lucia, Goddess Yasmin. I really want to acknowledge you for your bravery about speaking up around the atrocities in our medical systems, especially against Black women and people of color. And while Doxy has, I understand what he's saying, I also want to acknowledge that it's really hard to, you have to have free will and free choice to be able to make those choices. But when you are in the system, pinned against the wall, and I'm not saying that you're a victim at all, Yasmin. You know, you have to understand that, Doxy, that there is a systemic oppression going on here around this, Doxy. And so what I'm hearing from Goddess Yasmin, you can correct me if you're wrong, Goddess Yasmin, is that you know, being in the system around mental health doesn't afford you the luxury to make a lot of those decisions sometimes, and that we do need to you know, stop pushing away holistic, which are actually nature made, God made, you know, pieces to help us. And we're so you know, numb to nature and going out that more and more we're having these the sheer fact that so many people are fighting mental health issues is not like we're looking at the wrong problem. Like, oh, take the meds. No, like we have to unravel a whole fucking system that has put a lot of people in this position. And so as we start to look at the traditional technologies like mushrooms, we have to like look at this piece too. It's super, super important. We can't just say, well, if you just choose to like take a medication, it's going to hurt. Yeah, we know how the power of the mind. Okay, Joe Dispenza, all of that. This is all very true. We understand that concept, but there's other things that I think need to be addressed in connection to this. So, you know, Goddess Yasmin, I feel you, you know, so deeply. When we say like understanding how we can, you know, there has to be a space, and beyond that, maybe even a resurgence of community around creating those spaces. And, you know, I know here in Oakland, that's what we're doing. Like we're bringing back these these community spaces and we're not sharing them with the medical industry. We're just having sessions with shamans and snake venoms in spaces that we can do, having integration, microdosing sit-ins for women, and for it's just to come back into connection. And this is how we start to actually heal.
Wolfie, come here.
Heal in community. So I hope I didn't overstep myself, but I just wanted to speak up on that.
Good.
I just realized that I think we were supposed to transition, and I apologize to Noam. So he is supposed to start us off for the last hour. And if I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm in Hawaii on time, what time is it in Pacific Standard Time?
9:37. 9:30.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if we're going to finish on time, let's get it going.
Right on. So we're in our last hour. Noam, can you end our last hour? It's been 24 hours of beautiful intensity and alchemy, to quote Rick. Thank you, Yasmin, for that very moving story. I was crying quite a bit. So just moving on, Noam, you're taking us away in the last hour.
Wow, thanks so much. It's such an honor to be the last one to finish this amazing event and convention and meeting. Much respect to all that stayed to the 24 hours, like you, Eric, and nice to meet you and nice to meet everybody. We don't have much time, I guess, so I wanted to raise a question to sum up everything, and let's see if you connect to this idea. Let's take assuming that the psychedelics can actually heal us, and get over the traumas, and as we heard a lot of stories and amazing things and changes, then we are healed. All right, we are a better person, or we feel better. And my next question is, what do we do with this? What do we do as a persons who feel better and they see the sick society that we are in? And I was thinking, for example, about things that we can do as a society, which has a lot in common, which is the psychedelics, but let's try to speak beyond the psychedelics and the drugs and substances anyway, to some sort of a social activism, all right? And especially this question focuses on what do you think are the values of our psychedelic movement or culture or society, and what values
stopped.
do you think? What values do you think we should promote, and how we can promote it? You get the question?
No. Why did you stop the recording?
We're experiencing.
Because we're running out of room and we're compressing files and changing the host. Just, we can keep moving forward and it'll all get caught.
Okay.
So does anyone want to answer the question or refer to it?
Are you familiar with Charles Eisenstein? It's something that I'm really like. They're really kind of connected with the comment that you made, or the question that you asked.
No, what does he do?
So he's a, I guess, philosopher. He's written several books. He wrote this really beautiful one called Sacred Economics, which actually posits that the way that our money system is designed is actually, well, it's both like a perpetuator of this separation that we feel, and it's a result of the separation that we feel. And and it's not set, even like these like corporations and businesses and everything that we kind of look at as like the evil, they're functioning within the system that we have. And so it's not really like their fault in a way. And the way that people like you're saying, like, they're sort of like waking up and they're seeing the system that we have, and like, what do we do about it? Like the sort of answers that he puts forth are just like, how can we show each other that we are not necessarily separate? How can we like actually put forward community and like put our relationships ahead of, like, say, acquisition of wealth, or like put connections that we make ahead of of like economic success.
Yeah, I really like the idea. It's like a psychedelic economy.
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
connectedness economy.
I mean, his whole, like, I think he's a long time burner, and so like the idea of like the gift based
recording in progress
is huge in a lot of the work that he puts forward. But I think that trying to figure out ways that we can have connection and have like ways that don't necessarily require the exchange of funds or money. I mean, this sounds like a little bit of a trope, but like, it's the little ways that you interact with the world that can kind of like plant the seeds for change to happen on a bigger scale. Waking up a little bit with this, from the help of, a sacred plant or sacred fungi. I mean, I think also like big systemic change and pushing for that is huge and needs to happen. And that's like what events like this are great for. And they're all, it's also the little ways that you interact in the world, and little moments of kindness, or little moments of like, just like having somebody that maybe is like really lost inside in their world, and just like having them feel like for a moment that somebody is empathetic, somebody understands them, and somebody is like feeling compassion for them. I think those things go a really long way.
Amazing. Nice. Thank you for the answer. Anyone else wants to comment about it? Leo, what do you think? Excuse me.
Oh, sorry.
Who is it?
Yeah.
Doc Z.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Where are you from right now?
Sorry?
Where are you right now?
In Vancouver.
Vancouver in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, there's another one in Washington. So I'm gonna say the same thing, but maybe in a simpler way. If I use psychedelics to heal myself, but then I look around and I'm living in a sick society, I would probably, take a deep breath and go, and why stop with myself? Heal other people, so as to make the society less sick, right? Everybody here is not special in being able to see the light of psychedelics, and anybody can if they get the right exposure to it. And anybody who has a problem can and should be offered, to cross the line to the legions of the healthy, mentally healthy. And I'm not just saying that. I've really put years of work into creating the science that makes availability happen.
Yeah, but still I take it that it's not that everyone should take psychedelics all the time, and it's not the most important, or is it? is it going to change the world just by itself without any values, you think?
I don't think I know that a molecule is an arrangement of a configuration of atoms, right? And their elements. So how much information can a molecule contain? The molecule doesn't really heal without the subject guiding themselves to the molecule. A molecule doesn't know what's right. It just gives us a little bit of a push to be able to concentrate, and it gives us a little bit more willpower so that we can do what's right in spite of the fact that it's challenging. But the molecules themselves, they don't know anything.
Yeah, but you're saying just focus on getting the psychedelics to society, and this will do the work in some sense.
I've said this publicly many times to many
This
channels.
is what we all is coming to
believe,
everyone in this. Yeah,
I believe people are responsible. I believe that adults know how to live life. Most of them. Give them a chance. Don't nanny everybody, and you'll see you'll see them prosper.
Okay, man, you live in Canada.
I spent 34 years in Tel Aviv.
Really?
Yeah.
So you know the difference. Now you know the difference.
Oh yeah. I was in Khan Yunis for 4 years.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
And then Bet Holim Mutas, Bichash.
Wow.
It's I was counting bodies for all of my reserve duty. That was my job.
As a soldier?
B'miluim. As a reserve duty soldier, I was a manpower clerk in an airborne hospital.
Okay, so I don't know. In Canada, maybe you are free right now, to use cannabis, to use mushrooms, and it's a different mindset. I think that the illegal states.
Oh, in Vancouver, if you don't smoke marijuana, they kick you out of the city.
Good. Okay. Anyone else wants to comment on that?
I would like to go ahead and make a comment. It's like I've been hearing a lot of very interesting stories, and I've always had my own viewpoint on this situation, but I'm one of those maybe rare people, maybe not as rare as I think, that I put it all under a microscope and I dissected the entire history of how the medical system was developed. I personally have not had any positive experiences from it. So that to me means that we absolutely need an alternative, and we need to utilize that to its fullest extent. And what I mean by that is, as long as we have choices, those are, and when I say choices, being fully aware of what you're dealing with, to me is vitally important, because we are too easily duped and tricked into accepting things that ultimately are damaging to our bodies if we're not careful. I have made that mistake even after years of research, and then I vowed that absolutely I will never make that mistake again and allow another person who I don't view as being educated enough to deal with what we call health, allow them the opportunity to do whatever they want to me. Those days are over. But when I took full control of my health, I had to go back into my own history as an individual, and being a Black man, I had to go back there, and I had to go back thousands of years to find the true health of what it was to be an African before this medical system ever came into existence. So that was important to me. And when I went back there, then I understood, okay, I know what I need to do, so I don't need Western at all. Now, look, if you break a bone or you get cut, you want somebody to stitch you, you want them to reset the bone, there's emergencies that we need to address, absolutely. There absolutely are certain substances in the emergency room that are very useful in maintaining your life if you're in an emergency. But once those things are taken care of, the only thing that can heal and regenerate tissue in the human body is natural plants. That is just my viewpoint. And if we turn to any chemical, we must understand the nature of chemicals and how they are put together and who is the person that put it together and who's the administrator of that institution and what did they put in there? What is it doing to you? You have to question it all. And that's what I do. I question it because if we were already being healed naturally in Africa before the slave traders came in and snatched us up and put us on a boat and hauled us across the ocean, then personally, as a person, I have to go back there to find my health. And that is what I did. And when I did that, I had the most profound and amazing detoxification thing that happened to me. So not only did I detoxify my body and heal myself, I also detoxified completely my brain. So I will never accept someone with a less than a second-rate education when it comes to health, because they don't know about health. And we can thank a man by the name of John D. Rockefeller for breaking this system like he did. So once we understand what Rockefeller did, what Carnegie did, and when they put their billions into a system and say, okay, now they put natural healing under attack. It has been a concerted attack. They've come after people that are effective, and we saw it again with the pandemic. They attack you. So if they weren't attacking us, we wouldn't have the need to be so out of whack with what's going on. But when they start killing doctors that are healing, when they start taking your license away because you chose to help someone, those are the things that we're starting to see, and those are the things that need to stop. Because if I can take something and not have to come back to you over and over and over and over and over for treatment and medications over and over and over, turning myself into a zombie or whatever it is, then it's ridiculous. We want to get back to nature. Africans had natural healing. We didn't need doctors. We didn't have hospitals before they started dragging us out of there. We knew how to take care of our health. So once
Of course,
we learn,
brother. Of course.
yeah, once we know
Medicine
how to
is a new field.
What's
As
that?
Medicine is a new field.
Yes, exactly. I don't want no part of it myself because it's too new and it's not based upon healing. It's not based upon healing. It's based upon a capitalistic notion of creating a patented medicine so somebody can get rich. That's all that is. Because if you care about a human and you know a human where they came from, if you have knowledge of those plants and herbs, you'll never need a medication. And that's just my point. We can get beyond that and regenerate tissue. I actually took a class from a man by the name of Dr. Robert Morris. He has the International School of the Healing Arts and Sciences in Florida, right? An amazing doctor who's been healing so many diseases with herbs and capsules and tinctures and these sorts of things. But it's a protocol and it is a process once you do it. Once you undertake it, it is a process. And most of the time you have to switch to an all fruit diet for it to be effective. There's a reason for this. There's a science behind it. It's very easy to explain and it's very easy to understand, but it's based upon the pH scale because a healthy body is at 7.4 on a pH scale. Now it doesn't stay there, but you have to understand below 7, everything below 7 is acidic. We all know that acid burns, right? And the further you go down that scale from 6 to 7, 6 is 10 times more acidic than 7, 5 is 10 times more acidic than 6, and worse and worse. So if you consider medications, they're down around 3. So, you know, we have to get real. You cannot heal with acid. You need alkaline to grow. So once you move towards alkaline, I believe you can do that. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay.
Cool. I don't mean to interrupt, but Noah is back on, and then I was hoping Ben would have a chance to speak, but Noah has rejoined us.
No.
Hello. I'm sorry I missed. Sorry I missed the last half hour. I had dealing with being underground for about a half hour heading back to Brooklyn. So yeah, I'm sorry I missed. I'm sure there was a lot. It sounds like there was a lot of discussion. I guess I'll have to ask someone to fill me in later. I just wanted to pick up there to the extent I can share some other points. I'd like to do so, but there were two questions. Annie had a question about what to do in terms of dealing, I think, with system transformation. And Leo had asked about my experience. I've done. I'm going to say a word in response to into Leo. I mean, like I said, I've tried to open up the concept of psychedelic law and establish the idea that law is its own psychedelics, their own unique legal inquiry. I like to think that's had an impact. And the other thing, I guess, my main thing I've done, if I can say that, I can say that I accomplished anything in my time here, was I worked with Kevin Matthews, the executive director of Decriminalize Denver back in 2018, and kind of like helped him in the process of getting the language of the ballot initiative approved. They had not succeeded. They'd failed twice, I think, to get the Denver Board of Elections to approve the language for the initiative, and they couldn't go forward without that approval. And Kevin heard me speak on a podcast, I think back in the day, where there weren't any other psychedelic lawyers for all intents and purposes. And he reached out to me, and I was on the phone with him basically every day from mid-May through mid-September. So I'd like to think that I can say that I helped move this process forward in some way, not in psychedelics, but in cannabis. I organized the first present public discussion of the racial disparities in arrests for simple cannabis possession in New York, which became the talking point, the main issue in cannabis legalization here. So I'd like to think that I can take some credit for the law in New York changing. But conceptually, trying to do a meta-analysis and think through the meaning and the significance, and present the idea that the psychedelics. I mean, I know I may not have these perspectives, may not be popular, but I'd like to say that the question for me is not psychedelics themselves, what they mean for the individual, but the question is, how do psychedelics, how will they be incorporated into the future of the species? Let's say that there are going to be, there's different scenarios. They may be part of a wellness regimen. They may be, presumably I don't think, without some profound transformations that aren't going to happen immediately in the healthcare system, they're going to be incorporated in some form as pharmaceutical products. Certainly a sacramental aspect. But so the big question is, how do they bear on legalization versus species?
Your line is off, I think, Noah.
Can you hear me now?
Not so much.
Not so much. Now, just transition to Wi-Fi. Hello.
Okay, so it takes a minute.
All right, am I back?
You're here, but with little disconnections.
All right. Is how's everybody else hearing me? Hello?
I think now it's okay.
Yeah. All right. And so then let me respond. Sorry about the shaking here. Like I said,
maybe if you cut out your video, and just left the audio, that might help.
There you go. How about that? Does that work?
Sounds better. Now we don't hear you at all.
In the United States, which is a federal system,
Okay.
there's a federal government. You can hear me now? We're good?
Yeah, now you're good. You're back.
Okay. Very good. Okay. So we're in a federal system with a federal government and a bunch of states that have their own legal systems within certain limitations. They're all subject to the federal government. And there's a doctrine. And then within the state systems there, it breaks down into other lower jurisdictions, the counties. I think everywhere, possibly, I don't really know Louisiana, how Louisiana is set up, the states are then the next level down with their own laws, and below that is the county level. And one needs to engage with all of those levels. What's happened classically is that law changes at the local level, the municipal level, the county level, et cetera. And then there's an infrastructure. You demonstrate that there's a constituency that wants a policy change. I wrote a piece on that right after the Denver vote. And I said there's what I would call a psychedelic constituency that was unrecognized before. There's a population of people for whom access to psychedelics is important. They want to see it happen, and they're on the map now. And that picked up rapidly. That's one of the things that Denver did, is it said this is possible. And Oakland and Decriminalized Nature organized very quickly after Denver, the Board of Oakland and Decriminalized Nature organized approved language initiative after I think again the Board of I think this was Decriminalized Nature organized concept initiative. There is you can't not have law, because law is just a form of an extreme form of normal human interactions. We're all stuck together. We can't not interact. So you can't have no law. There are questions then about whose law and who makes the law, who enforces the law, and how far up in a system, in a political system, does one go? Where is the power? And I've made the argument, proposed, that psychedelic legalization, drug policy, mental health care to some extent should be at the lowest level, the local level, the municipal level, the county level. And that's relatively easy for people to do. There's in New York City, there are community boards. That's the lowest barrier to entry into the political system. It's basically on a community and a neighborhood basis, which you have a board of people that give a voice to the local population. They have certain limited controls over particularly land use and licensing of alcohol bars and bars and to some extent stores. And that's what happened with psychedelics. Denver and then Decriminalized Nature is organized at the local level. I made this argument on my blog, a piece called Psychedelic Legalization Now, which makes the case that that's where the power should be. The control should be at the local level. It's complicated because in a large system, you need, just in terms of market regulation, you can have imbalances where you may have a concentration. If you have one legal jurisdiction at the local level surrounded by jurisdictions that don't have legal markets, you can have problems with people coming in and flooding the legal jurisdiction. That was one of the complaints about the Natural Medicine Act in Colorado, is that it didn't allow the local jurisdictions to opt out. And going back to sorry, let's see, I've got comments here. I'm going to show from these. All right, so not directed to me. Where's the last one? So going back to this point I made earlier, I think the earlier part of it, that the most fundamental thing that you can do, I think, for transforming the structure of society, of human civilization, which at this point totally interlinked of 9 billion people or whatever we are, is for everyone to get a fundamental legal education. So you can look up the law, understand how law works, understand how a lawsuit works, understand how legislation works, how the courts and judges interpret the law, and so on. That is if you want to have the power, empowerment, that's the one way that I say, as a practicing lawyer for the last 22 years. But one should be familiar, at least in the United States, and I don't know how it works in other areas. I understand from speaking with Noam that the state of Israel is a very different system. It's not broken down with local jurisdictions. There are no states comparable to there are in the United States, or provinces that are comparable to Canada. But let's talk about the United States for a moment. There's a legal doctrine called preemption, which means that there are a local government or a state government is limited in the type of law it can pass. A state government cannot legalize something that the federal government has prohibited, and cannot prohibit something that the federal government has legalized. So you got to start by becoming familiar with how your system works and how much you can do at the local level, and then aim for the federal level. And right now, it's unknown how a federal legalization of psychedelics can work. The structure hasn't been proposed. The existing structure is not going to work because the existing structure only allows two forms of access. Through a drug regulatory approval in the hands of the FDA, and then that should move the DEA out of the picture. And then a constitutionally protected First Amendment access under religious law. Those are very, very narrow forms of access. And there will need to be let's say a third way and a fourth way and a fifth way. But the only place to start, I think, is the local level, and that's the way it's worked. So that's what I see at the moment, and going with the idea that we walk into the future looking backwards. When you get to one hilltop, what you see is the next hilltop. So we're on one hilltop now, and we can see only so far, and it's an experiment. So I did a lot of talking. I hope that was helpful in some way.
It's very interesting, and it's very, I think it opens the way. But I wanted to offer another point of view, which is if the mushrooms grow on the ground and I eat them, there is no law about it. It's directly between me and life. And when you say that we have to view it as law, then I might say that in the case specifically of mushrooms, it can be very direct.
You need to you got to convince the prosecutor of that. No problem by me.
And it grows.
Sure, but that's the way it works. That's the way it works. I mean,
no, let me explain to you. In the United States, you have the FDA Act and you have the SHEA, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. And if it's synthetic, it goes under the FDA Act. And if it's natural, it goes under the SHEA.
Yeah, but psilocybin is on the controlled substances list. There's a criminal statute. That's an argument. I'm not familiar with the statute you just referenced. I mean, I know of it. I haven't practiced in that area. I'd love to get into that when I have the opportunity. But you need to get the DEA out of the way. You need to. That's the task at hand. I say this as an attorney. Just somebody who's been in the legal system, that you can declare that the criminal law doesn't apply, but the police may disagree with you, and they have the guns. So you can disagree all you want. The task at hand is not to declare that there is no applicable law. It's that there's a different law that applies. That's my perspective from within the legal system.
And you're saying that in the federal level, something like decriminalized nature cannot work?
It could, but you need to engage with a different set of laws. You need to engage with the federal law, and the federal law is limited. The state laws in the United States, the cannabis law, and now the psychedelic laws, they are contrary to federal law. That's one of the problems, and people have recognized that. It's a constitutional crisis in a sense. There's a disconnect in the law. In law, you're not supposed to have a disconnect. Everything is supposed to be consistent. When there are inconsistencies, the job of the judge is to figure out how to work them out together. There is no way to work it out together right now. It's an issue that hasn't been decided. I don't know. I haven't heard from Decriminalized Nature, any Decriminalized Nature chapter, what they propose to do with the federal law. Courtney Barnes, as far as I know, is the attorney who's been advising Decriminalized Nature. I'm not sure if she's still active there. I'm sure that she's probably the first person, well, one of the first people. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of psychedelic lawyers at this point. I mean, you could talk to Mason Marks at Harvard, among others, and see what he proposes in terms of doing with how how it would work. I mean, decriminalize. It's just a different set of laws, and you need to engage with the federal law on its own. I'm not aware of a proposal.
Okay, thank
Noam,
you.
can I ask Noah a question?
We have just 5 minutes, and I wanted to. I see that Ben Johnson is here, Dr. Ben Johnson, and maybe we can hear from what you do in the last 5 minutes, because I heard it's interesting work. Ben, are you here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Can you tell us a bit about your work and your relation to this subject we're talking?
Well, Leo asked me to talk about Salvia divinorum, which is it's a plant from Oaxaca, Mexico. I don't know how many of you have heard of it before, but or used it. But it's most often used in pretty concentrated doses, and people smoke it, which often gives people really frightening experiences, and then a lot of people use it that way. Aren't willing to try it again, but I've been growing it for about 2 years, and most often the way I use it is just chew a few leaves, or maybe a handful of leaves of fresh leaves, and it's for that it can be really calming, and it's good to help with meditation. And there's a few people that use it in small doses for doing physical healing, like if you have pain somewhere, you can. I don't know if you've used it before, you can feel like the energy or a change in gravity or a pull or something, but in his experience, he can use that energy to direct it to certain parts of his body if he has pain, things like that. But
wow, I never heard of that application.
Yeah, I've been growing it for about 2 years, and a lot of times when I water the plants or tend to the plants, I'll chew a few leaves while I'm doing it. So.
And you're doing research about it?
No, I haven't really done. I haven't done any bench research.
Okay, so you want to tell us about the plant and the effects?
The plants. The only place they've been found growing native is in Oaxaca, Mexico, and a lot of people. Just take my jacket off. A lot of people are think that maybe it's not even native there, because all the places they found it, it's planted in kind of neat patches, and it doesn't make seeds. Well, it can make seeds, but it's really hard to make the plant seed, because there's usually not any native birds or bees or stuff that'll pollinate it, so it has to be hand pollinated. It also requires less than 11 hours of light during the night, during the short, during the dark cycle, and certain temperature boundaries before it'll flower and make seeds. So most of the time people propagate it by doing rooting cuttings. It's fairly easy to grow once you get a good environment established for it, but it can be pretty easily attacked by spider mites and aphids and other pests, especially if it's grown indoors. But like probably I've given a lot of people plants, and probably 9 out of the 10 people weren't able to keep them alive. Some people, the plants nearly died from pests before they were able to salvage them back to health. The way it's usually used, like a lot of people find it in smoke shops and stuff, but usually in those settings it'll be 20 to 200x concentrate, and that's what people smoke, and it gives them these really strong, intense, terrifying experiences.
Let me interject here. I've talked to a lot of people with who've had salvia experience, and pretty much everybody who smoked it has had some scary experiences, and many have said, "I'll never do that again." whereas chewing it gives you an entirely different experience. Do you care to comment on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's been my experience too. Most people that have smoked it usually aren't willing to do it again. I have used the smoke part quite a number of times, but usually I don't do that really very big dose. But when people smoke it, usually it only lasts maybe 5 to 15 minutes. But it can feel like you're literally being pulled through something the size of a pinhole, and then you pop out somewhere else. You know, with most psychedelics like ayahuasca and mushrooms or things like that, like you still know that you're in the house or wherever you are, or at least most of the time I have. You don't feel like you're in a completely different reality. But with high dose, be in a room is not even your room anymore. It could be some other place. But but with chewing it, I think for the literature, usually the experience lasts around 4 hours or so. But it also, I think another reason it's not used that much for therapeutic purposes is usually with DMT containing plants, the experience is pretty predictable. But with salvia, like sometimes I can chew a whole handful of leaves and nothing happens. One time I went to a guy in Issaquah who does tincture, and he gave me like 10 times the dose he usually uses, and I didn't have any experience at all. And then sometimes I can be at home and just chew a couple leaves and get an experience from it. So I think it's also like ayahuasca and things like that. You can probably go and do it one time and then you can get a benefit from it. But I think with salvia, like with what's his name, Solomon. There's a guy in California, or Christopher Solomon. I was blanking on his name, but he has a website called Salvia Healings. If you want to check it out, he has a couple articles he's published and a few videos that go into it, you know, in a lot better detail than I can. That's one thing he studied. And he also participated in a study at where they gave him like inhaled vaporized stuff, and when they did functional MRI on his brain. But
okay, Ben, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're actually a little over time.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, thank you very much. We got the Salvia Healing, the name in the chat, so we can all check it out. Thank you very much for the story. To finish with still a curiosity for next things to come. Some interesting plans that we don't know yet. Leo, you want to finish this up?
Well, interestingly enough, I kind of feel like the experience of salvia for me was a very female experience. And, you know, Ben, you're welcome to come back and talk. We're going to do another 24-hour event in December 10th through 11th. And it's going to be women leading, but men and women are both welcome to come. It's just highlighting women leaders in the movement. But also, for me, salvia had such a feminine spirit to it that I just think your commentary on salvia could really be well suited to that event. So that's December 10th and 11th, just to let folks know. And if we could all just kind of ground for a minute and maybe, you know, give yourself a little hug for being here if you were here for the full 24 hours. And I just want to give thanks to everyone. Like, I've been amazed by people. I feel very humbled. That was a word that Doc C used earlier. And I was just going to say a little prayer to kind of close us off, and then I'll end the room. But this will be available on our website for people who want to hear the whole thing. And we will do this again. And I just want to say thank you to all the amazing people. I just really feel very grateful and happy. So here's my prayer, and then we'll end. So thank you to the earth. Thank you to the sky. Thank you to the sun. Thank you to my mother. Thank you to my father. Thank you to my grandmother. Thank you to my grandfather. Thank you to my children. Thank you to my grandchildren. Thank you to the whales. Thank you to the turtles. Thank you to the birds. Thank you to the bugs. And thank you to the mushrooms. I'm done.
Totally.
Well, we ought to say thank you, a big thank you to you.
Yeah.
This whole thing has come off so very well, and I know the effort you put into it, and I want to take my hat off to you and say brava. Well done.
Well done. Thank you very much, Leo. Such a special event and meetup. And nice to meet you all. I feel we have so much in common, you know, it's amazing.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
All. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
So much.
Thank you, Leo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. We'll stay in touch. Thank you, Rick. That conversation last night was pretty crazy, Rick. Oh my gosh. We had the best conversation.
I didn't want to leave you guys. I was like,
I know, Annie. I'm like,
awesome.
no, don't go.
This was good. See you in December, some of you, I hope. And we'll be in touch before then. Bye.